We have a 1-hour Newsmaker show this morning, and in segment 1, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. In segment 2, St. James anesthesiologist Dr. Ismail Mayer. Now welcoming to our microphones, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Guessing it was not a restful weekend for you, guessing that you were working most of the weekend. Can you tell us what the weekend was like for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a busy weekend, Brian. Obviously, with everything going on with this pandemic that we're facing and the crisis that we find ourselves in, there's really not too many opportunities for downtime. So Saturday was a busy day. Worked pretty much throughout the day. Yesterday, put quite a few hours in as well. Just on the phone with our local officials, keeping them up to speed. On the phone with Jack Wheeler, the county manager, talking to Senator O'Mara, Assemblywoman Burns. Had a phone conference with Congressman Reed on Friday, getting updated. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things that are happening in Albany and in Washington. We're just trying to do our best during these challenging times to keep the public informed. We're trying to pump out as much information on our city website and Facebook page as it comes out of Albany or Washington, D.C., especially as it affects small businesses and small business owners and their employees. There's just so much going on, so many moving parts. It's hard to digest it all at once. So we're doing our best to try to kind of sort out what is a fact and what legislation is still in the hopper.
Can you tell us anything interesting? Can you pass along anything from your conversations with people like Senator O'Mara or Congressman Tom Reed or Assemblywoman Burns?
Well, I think the message is just to stay calm and don't panic, and practice social distancing. Stay at home. Don't go out unless absolutely necessary. If you have if you have that doctor's appointment, if you have to pick up that prescription, if you have to get groceries, then go do those things. But please keep your distance. I know a lot of the grocery stores. I was up to Wegmans over the weekend, and I was up there pretty early on Saturday morning, and the customers were actually doing a pretty good job of spacing out and practicing that social distancing. And I know the cashiers were wiping down everything in between customers. So I think everyone, at least in Hornell, that I've seen, everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but it's difficult because we're not accustomed to just being hunkered down and in isolation for so long. We like to gather in groups. We like to be social. We like to do all the things that we normally do, and that's especially true of children who might not understand or have that depth of understanding of the severity of the crisis that we're facing. So, for myself and my wife, it's hard to explain that to our children who want to do things with their friends and don't understand having a difficult time understanding why school is canceled, especially our youngest daughter. So it's challenging, and when you're cooped up that long, tensions and anxieties are going to rise. But we're just asking everyone just to hang in there, and we'll all get through this together.
Talking to Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Mr. Mayor, wondering, have you been in contact with any of the town supervisors or mayors in neighboring towns?
It's mostly been at the county level and above. Mayor Felci and I typically talk, every other week or so. We haven't really had those, constant updates as we normally have, just because there's so many things happening on the upper levels of government. So I don't want to speak for Mayor Felci or Mayor Rectenwall and Canasteel, but I assume that they're having those same conversations that I am with the county and state officials and even the officials on the federal level.
Mayor Buckley, the news came in yesterday. I think it was at about, if I check my email, it says around 6:40 p.m. that there was a COVID-19 patient in Hornell. Wondering if you wanted to comment on that at all.
Well, I just want to say that that's not unexpected, and I'll reiterate what Governor Cuomo has been saying. The more tests that become available, the more testing that occurs, the more positive results that you'll have. And the fact is, there haven't been a lot of tests in and around Hornell or in this region for that matter, and the more that you have, the more that you'll find. So that wasn't really a surprise. Just talking to medical professionals, which I'm in daily talks with, and have been throughout the last couple of weeks. This was expected. You shouldn't be surprised that it's in Hornell or around us. We suspect that it may have been here for a number of weeks or even a month or so. So the fact that the person, an individual, has tested positive shouldn't come as a surprise. I can tell you that the individual, at the first sign of symptoms, self-quarantined. So the person was responsible, recognized that this may be COVID-19, and the person pretty much self-quarantined, let officials know that this was a possibility, and obviously the county has their own protocols, and they do, they start trying to establish where the person has been, who the person has been in contact with, and the county, and I can't say enough about the county officials. They have been doing just yeoman's work. Just glancing at the Steuben County website right now, Brian, it says in quarantine and being monitored 70 people, and 4 confirmed cases in Steuben County. So they're doing the best that they can with what they have, and the same goes with the medical community. And we talk about heroes, in our society, and a lot of people look to their favorite baseball player, their favorite football player, or this person and that person. I tell you right now, the true heroes are those people in the medical community on the front lines. It's those doctors, it's the nurses, those medical professionals that are battling this on a day-to-day basis on the front lines. It's our first responders, the police and fire that have to go out, and the EMTs, the medics, the paramedics, the ones that are on the front lines having to expose themselves and put themselves at risk to help others. And those are the true heroes of this war that we're in.
Wondering on the topic of the COVID-19 having arrived in Hornell and Hornellsville and Bath. When people go out, are they? You talk to the public health officials. I haven't seen them recommend this yet, but I'm wondering, will they soon be recommending that people wear masks and gloves when they go out shopping? I know some people do that on their own, but do you see us reaching a point where everybody does that?
Well, I could see the point where everyone would want to do that. I don't know that the capacity to have that many masks is right there. Right now, there's a struggle. There's a shortage of masks. I know our police department actually had extra masks that they had in inventory, and they took them up to St. James and donated them. So there's a shortage. There's a shortage of tests. There's a shortage of masks. There's a lot of shortages out there, and actually, if you've been watching, following along with the current events, there's a shortage of hospital beds nationwide, and so the medical system, the hospitals, the networks across the country, they're trying to increase that capacity. That's why you're seeing the Army Corps of Engineers. They're going to be they're going to start construction on 4 temporary hospital sites here in New York State in an effort to address, capacity issues. We've been talking about that right here in Hornell. We have, we're very uniquely positioned, whereas we have an old hospital that was just closed down, in the last week or so, that's just sitting there idle, and that hospital still has beds, it still has equipment. St. James, and I give Brian O'Donovan and his staff all the credit in the world for the foresight of retaining those beds and retaining those monitors and some of that specialized equipment, just in case. Obviously you don't want to, cause any alarm or panic or anything like that, but what a wonderful problem to have, basically having a backup hospital just sitting here down the road. No other community that I'm aware of throughout the entire country has that problem. I think there's been discussions at the state level about St. James Hospital, or the old St. James, that is, on Canasteel Street, and that hospital is definitely in play if need be. But in the meantime, Brian O'Donovan and the staff at the new St. James Hospital, the doctors, the nurses, they are just doing an incredible job. I know you have Dr. Izzy Meir coming on at 8:30, and he'll be able to tell you, a lot more in detail than I can. But I just can't say enough about the medical community that we have right here in Hornell, New York, and in our area. They are top notch, and they are doing yeoman's work.
Talking to Hornell Mayor John Buckley live this morning on Newsmaker. Last night, the president or the governor activated the National Guard in New York State. Mayor Buckley, do we know anything about Hornell's National Guard unit, the 222nd? Have they been ordered to go anywhere? Do we know anything about that yet?
I'm unaware of any deployment orders from the local National Guard, although you are correct. President Trump did activate the National Guard in New York State, California, and I believe there was a third state that was listed as well. So the National Guard is springing into action, and I've got to say, the cooperation between Governor Andrew Cuomo and President Trump it's wonderful to see. They've been getting along, especially in this world where politics is so divisive. To see the governor and to see the president working in unison. Obviously, New York State has more cases than any state in the country, and by a lot. And I saw a statistic just this morning that New York State actually represents 5% of all corona cases in the world, which is astounding. Most of that obviously is centered downstate in the New York City area, but and even though Governor Cuomo and I, we disagree on a lot of policy issues, I'll give credit where credit is due, and the governor has been a leader throughout this crisis and has shown leadership and the compassion and the understanding. And I've been following along with his news conferences on a daily basis, as I have with President Trump, just trying to stay up to date with the latest. And and it's great to see that leadership coming from Albany. The governor had to make some hard decisions, and I think those decisions are going to pay off, although I will say in New York City, people need to get their act together down there. I think the governor was pretty frustrated with what's going on in New York City, frustrated with Mayor de Blasio. Mayor de Blasio needs to figure some things out down there and start taking some swift action. I've seen the reports where people down there, it's basically business as usual. They're congregating in large groups on the streets. I mean, obviously it's a densely populated city, but I don't think New York City is doing their part in all this.
Mayor John Buckley is our guest this morning. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back, and we'll talk about the shopping situation in Hornell in relation to the COVID-19. As it was announced last night, there's a COVID-19 patient in Hornell. It was announced Friday that there's one in Hornellsville. Stay with us.
Despite what's going on in the world, Cunningham Starring & Associates is here to help you do your taxes. As of March 23rd, we can't meet you face-to-face, but we are doing phone conference meetings. Whether you go to our website and upload your documents or use our drop-off or fax service, we can do your taxes. Or maybe you want to do an extension and we can help with that too. In the Hornell area, find us on the web at hornelltax.com. That's hornelltax.com, with drop-off times of Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. or 2 to 4 p.m.
The day we've been waiting for is finally here. A healthy new day for our hometown. The new St. James Hospital is now open, and we're so excited to enter this new era, where you and your family will receive medicine of the highest order, from emergency care to general surgery, all in a brand new, beautiful building, right here in our hometown. The new St. James Hospital, now open, part of UR Medicine.
Back on live with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Mayor, you mentioned being up in Wegmans recently. I'm wondering, in the different grocery stores, Wegmans and the others, how are the shelves? Earlier we had reports of a lot of the shelves being empty. What's it like as of this weekend? How was it?
Well, up at Wegmans, the shelves were pretty stocked. There were a few things that they were low on. Obviously, the paper products they're constantly low on because of the run on toilet paper, tissues, paper towels, hand sanitizer, soaps, and that sort of thing. The problem is the hoarding going on. There's not a shortage in supply. What happens is when so many people, when there's runs on toilet paper, when there's runs on all these different items, it disrupts the supply line because the manufacturer has to get that product out onto the trucks to the warehouses, and the warehouses conversely turn that product around, put it on trucks, and get it out to the stores. Well, companies usually project throughout the year. They know their busier times and their slower times, and they adjust accordingly, whether it's staffing or materials and supplies and the product itself. So when you have that huge of a disruption to the supply line, it backs things up. And you're requiring to have more trucks go out, and more trucks need more drivers. I know that this is just based on conversations I've had with Congressman Reed over the past year. Nothing to do with this virus. There's a shortage of CDL licensed drivers out there, and when you have that much demand put on the supply line, you need that many more trucks and that many more drivers, and they're just not there. They're doing the best they can. I feel bad for all the people that work at the grocery stores and the Wegmans and the Walmarts and the Tops of the world. These people are just getting slammed every day. They're doing their best to get the product out. I know there's a lot of fear and anxiety, but I'm going to say this. It doesn't matter how much toilet paper you buy, it's not going to protect you from the coronavirus. You have to isolate, you have to practice social distancing, practice good hygiene, which you should be doing around the year anyway. It's all these things. You're not using more toilet paper today than you were a month ago. Are you eating that much more food? Are you eating that much more cereal and canned soup now than you were 2 months ago? No, the answer is no. People are hoarding. Brian, you would think it was the Cold War and people were stocking up the nuclear bunker. and people really need to calm down on the food supply and the stress that it's putting on, because what happens is when the shelves get raided, the people that really need it, the seniors, the elderly, they're having a hard time getting food and getting those items and materials that they need. And it really hurts everyone.
The governor touched on that yesterday in his 11 a.m. Press conference. The governor's been giving 11 a.m. Press conferences for several days now. They usually last an hour, maybe a little bit over, maybe a little bit just under an hour. But the governor talked about that. He talked about the lack of social distancing, as you referenced, in New York City. He went on about how you see a lot of people in their teens and 20s out there playing basketball in the streets of New York City. Governor Andrew Cuomo is not pleased with that. Mayor Buckley, moving on to Washington. The U.S. Senate unable to pass COVID-19 relief legislation yesterday. Did you have any thoughts there?
Yeah. Again, just very, very disappointed in our leaders in Washington. Not being able to get this wrapped up. This was the phase 3 of the response to the coronavirus. They've successfully passed phase 1 and 2, and what they were talking about yesterday, Brian, is a $1.4 trillion that's trillion with a T stimulus package, which would have been the largest stimulus package ever. And the Democrats blocked it. I know Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was quoted as saying this package significantly cut back our hospitals, cities, states, and medical workers. I have a hard time wrapping my head around a quote like that when you're spending $1.4 trillion that a month ago you weren't spending. So how does spending an additional $1.4 trillion cut anything? That to me doesn't make any sense. But I call on Senator Schumer and all the others down there, Senator Mitch McConnell, who is the majority leader, put politics aside, put the partisan nonsense aside. Just get it done, come together for the good of the country for once in your lives, get something done for the people. We have small business owners, medium-sized business owners, large business owners, and employees adversely affected. There are so many people out of work that aren't getting paychecks. It's utterly ridiculous for these knuckleheads down in Washington, D.C. not to get along and come to some compromise and get this done because they're hurting the people.
I had several calls here in the studio over the weekend, and I think it was 3 people that called in and had been listening to Governor Andrew Cuomo, and they said they really liked the tone of not hearing the partisan bickering during Governor Cuomo's press conferences, and they were really impressed. And I think all 3 of those calls were coming from conservatives. They just felt that they really liked it, that the governor had that attitude of putting the bickering aside. The governor said on the Sean Hannity show on Friday, on Sean's radio show, Governor Andrew Cuomo said there's one thing going on right now. There's one thing that we're focused on. And, maybe Washington could learn a little bit about that. Mayor Buckley, grants and loans for small businesses in Hornell and the surrounding area, is that held up because of the Senate's inability to pass legislation yesterday?
Absolutely, Brian. 100%. We're waiting on Washington to act, and we're waiting on the Senate to get something approved and ultimately get something on the president's desk where he's able to sign it. And I think the president is frustrated as well. I've seen it in his comments, and we need to get something done. We don't know how long this crisis is going to last. Governor Cuomo indicated it could last 3 months, 6 months, or even 9 months. We don't know. You don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty going forward, but the one thing we do know is people are being hurt by this. Financially, they're being hurt. Businesses have shut down. Businesses have closed their doors, and my fear is there's going to be a large portion of these small businesses that'll never open their doors again, and we don't want that. And so they need relief, and they need the federal government to step in and provide that relief and bridge them to the other side of this so they can get back going. And I mean, there's a lot of great ideas out there, but Washington and the Senate in particular, they need to get the partisanship out of the way and get cracking and get something going on this.
And I get emails from Sean Hogan over at the Hornell Industrial Development Agency, and he passes along emails from the Empire State Development Corporation, and those emails we post on our website. Mayor John Buckley, I wanted to ask you last question about that fire that happened yesterday at 45 Bennett Street. I know you were incredibly busy yesterday, and I know that you will meet with Hornell Fire Chief Frank Brzezowski to discuss this, but I'm wondering, did you have a chance to speak with him yet about that fire?
Yeah, I actually spoke with him yesterday as it was just being wrapped up, and our fire department did a nice job. They went in, knocked it down very quickly. There weren't any residents injured, although one of our firefighters was injured to a degree. The fire apparently he was going up and down the staircase, and the stairs collapsed, and he twisted a knee and maybe tweaked a shoulder. So I'm going to find out some more details this morning. I think he's doing well. He's in good spirits. Nothing life-threatening or to that nature. But just another fire in Hornell. Obviously, it's under investigation. Police and fire will be investigating it, and they'll be investigating it from all angles. And we'll find out more as the next couple of days unfold.
Glad I asked that question. Sorry to hear that a firefighter was injured. We've been speaking with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Mr. Mayor, I know how busy you are, and I know how you worked all weekend. I want to thank you so much for coming on and joining us this morning live.
Appreciate you having me on, Brian, and we'll talk again to keep you updated.
Thank you so much, Mayor. It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Stay with us for Dr. Ismail Mayer coming up right after the local news and weather.